Thousands of warriors who stand to attention, protecting the rock from harm. Simple farmers really, until they're under threat. Then all hell breaks loose. They attack en masse with deadly accuracy, injuring and maiming everything in their path. They are giant stinging honeybees, known to scientists as Apis dorsata, the most aggressive and deadly type of bee found in South Asia. The bees are twice the size of European honeybees, and their stinger is 3 times as long. On May the 1st, 2004, a child threw a stone at one of the nests, and the bees went on a rampage.
The bees first attack your head, and especially the face, and then they attack the whole body. A few even managed to get into my ears. The pain was excruciating, and I didn't know what to do. When they sting, they leave their sting on the skin, and the pain is just unbearable. I had hundreds of these white stings all over my body.
Lasting many hours, injuring over 200 terrified tourists, some seriously. Over 100 people were admitted to hospital. About 20 of those were women, and more than 55 were school children on a day out. The attack in 2004 was not the first, and will not be the last. Sri Lanka is a country hit by the southwest and the northeast monsoon. Some areas receive more than 500 centimeters of rain a year, others considerably less. The rainfall patterns that sweep across Sri Lanka also dictate the migratory patterns of the stinging honeybees. They fly away from the rain and towards new sources of nectar, pollinating the flowers as they go on their journey. These giant honeybees are found all over South Asia. Bee and man have lived side by side for generations in the small rural towns of Sri Lanka in perfect harmony. Dr. Punchiheva has studied these insects for many years and has grown to appreciate their value to the country at large. He's been an entomologist for 30 years. He's passionate about insects, but most especially about the bees.
I think every child has a kind of an insect period in their life. And perhaps mine, I kept it all these years.
Punchiheva splits his time between teaching at a local university and traveling around Sri Lanka studying the bees. His current project is to document their migratory patterns throughout the country. Having worked with bees for 3 decades, Dr. Punchiheva knows when the bees can be approached and when he needs to keep his distance. This type of honeybee is open nesting, where the bees hang on the outside of their nest and are more vulnerable to attack than most other bees, making them more aggressive. The giant stinging honeybees build their nests on sparsely leaved trees or rock crevices where they can see the sun, using the direction of the light as a compass to forage for food.
This openness is important from the point of their communication. And they always build a nest in open areas such as a rock or a building or a tree branch where they can see the sun or the blue skies direct.
Bees are a superorganism where good communication is key. Each bee carries out all his duties to aid the survival of the whole community. Food gathering is just one of their major daily tasks. Bees most often forage in the morning and again midday. Their bodies are covered in hairs which trap the pollen grains. Nectar is sucked into their stomachs using their tongue and the pumping action of their throat. They arrive back at their nest at great speed. From the moment a bee returns, there is much to do. They touch their antennae together in a behavior known as antenating. The nectar collected earlier is regurgitated and fed to other bees. Then it's converted into honey and deposited into one of the thousands of cells in the honey chamber. Other bees look for parasites on their neighbors, helping to keep the colony healthy. Each bee performs its task for the greater good of all. For hundreds of years, smoke has been used as a means to control honeybees. Dr. Punchiheva is smoking these bees so that he can uncover the honeycomb and take a closer look at the colony. Bees get disorientated with smoke. Fearing an impending fire, they gorge on the honey. The young combs at the bottom of the nest are soft and light in color. The darker, stronger, older combs are found higher up the nest and are used to store larvae. By observing the nest, Dr. Punchiheva can monitor the health of the colony. The more honey stores in pupa, the healthier it is. The workers produce this beautiful piece of nest architecture. Wax from their glands sculpt these perfectly symmetrical cells. The combs contain honey at the very top. Stored pollen is located further down. The queen, always hidden from view, walks up and down at the very heart of the nest, carrying out her sole responsibility, the laying of eggs for future generations. The waxy nest acting like a giant incubator for her brood.
I remember them, the Vedas, the Aborigines of Sri Lanka. They lived in Kashyap's time and are still around today. They were honey hunters for the kings. And though the world has changed, these Vedas have not. I used to watch them, finding honey in the hollows of trees. The men of the community join together to hunt and divide the spoil equally. Honey is eaten fresh in large quantities, wax and all. The young bees inside the nest are especially wholesome. Since honey was the food of kings, the Vedas worked hard to keep Kashyapa well fed.
Bees dance too. Bees have two main ways of communicating with each other. One is physical and the other is chemical. The physical communication appears as a series of dances. It's a way of informing nestmates about the location of new food. These highly aggressive insects are like well-trained pets in his expert hands. By feeding them on sweetened rose water, Dr. Punchiheva can observe them up close. Because of this communication system, when one bee finds a new source of food, it can mobilize hundreds of other workers from the colony in minutes.
The landing bee with the new food source, with the new food from the new source, will just run on the comb and butting into the nestmates and saying, "Hey, I found some food," and they all get excited. And then she offers the food to another bee, at which point several of her nestmates closely watch her.
The bee's repertoire involves 3 dances. Dr. Punchiheva finds that the distance from the food source determines the dance. The round dance signifies that food is within 3 meters of the nest. The sickle dance, that food is up to 5 meters away. and the tail wagging dance that food is over 5 meters away. With distance conveyed, the bees now need to communicate direction. Here, they align their bodies at the same angle as the food. Now the rest of the colony knows both the direction and distance, the feasting can begin. But even Dr. Punchiheva, with his decades of experience, can be caught unaware when it comes to these aggressive bees. As he approaches this 30-meter tree, a hungry lizard has a similar idea. The guard bees that hang at the edge of the nest are agitated, and so lizards are warned with a hiss not to come closer. The whole colony takes part in the hissing, making the sound using a rhythmic body movement which travels like a wave through the colony. If the lizard proceeds in this venture, not only he, but also Dr. Punchiheva standing at the base of the tree will face the wrath of the honeybee. These waves ripple across the colony, raising the alarm. Fortunately for both the lizard and the entomologist, the danger passes without incident.
They wouldn't normally attack. You can go very close to a nest, they wouldn't normally attack. The bees never land on you. There's no reason. Unless there's some food or some sugary thing around which they come to feed on. But the moment you crush a bee, there's a chemical signal, which we call a pheromone, sent to the nest. But if you crush more bees, obviously there's more generation of the alarm, and they would come.
Days later, whilst observing a nest, Dr. Punchiheva inadvertently crushed several bees. In a matter of seconds, the crushed bees activate the alarm pheromone. More crushed bees, more alarm pheromone. It takes just one bee to send an alarm back to the nest, causing an immediate and violent reaction in the colony. Nest mates now rush to the source of the pheromone. They believe their colony is under attack. Of the 3 species of honeybees in South Asia, the Apis dorsata is by far the most aggressive and deadly. 3/4 of the worker population of bees is engaged in defense. Bees give up their own lives for the survival of their queen, sometimes sacrificing thousands of worker bees to save one queen. When under attack, they thin out this bee blanket. From 8 bees thick down to just 1 bee thick, they cling together to form a defensive curtain, making the nest much thinner and much larger.
If you just go by the size of the nest, it really expands. It's not due to the size of the comb, it's simply the bees are stretching themselves as a curtain. Even a slightest wind can provoke them to attack more and more.
The nest can expand to 20 to 30 centimeters from the comb, allowing the bees to instantly respond to the threat. Dr. Punchiheva was bitten over a dozen times through his protective armor. A terrifying exhibition of defense at its most aggressive. A worker bee has a sting at the end of her abdomen. The sting sticks in the victim's skin so firmly the bee rips her internal organs to get away. The venom continues to enter the victim from the stinger for 45 to 60 seconds. In the United States alone, more people die from insect stings than from spider or snake bites. The Vadders, The traditional honey-gatherers of Sri Lanka have collected honey for thousands of years, but they have a couple of tricks up their sleeve. The very aggressive giant bee they only pillage on moonless nights. Without light, the colony is disorientated and cannot attack. They also use a preparation of ochre leaves to diffuse the stings of the less aggressive honeybees. The ochre leaves are ground together with salty water and applied to neutralize the stings. Whether depleted in numbers due to an attack or running out of food sources, the nest goes into decline. A common scavenger of the bee is the wax moth, seen here in the white lighter patches on the comb. If the colony had been healthy, the wax moth would have been killed on entry. But colonies that are hungry will allow a predator to trespass with no hindrance. Female wax moths can deposit masses of eggs on unprotected honeycombs. After a few days, these larvae hatch and begin their feeding frenzy, destroying the comb. Worker bees only live for 50 days, whilst the queen lives for years. But nothing in life is wasted, so these ants feast on the multitude of dead bees. Some bees die of natural causes, others are part of an attacking army and die once they have stung their victims. And the cycle of life and death and rebirth continues. The monsoon rains fall in October, and the warrior bees leave Sigiriya. Each colony has its own smell, keeping track of each other by scent. This is a once-in-a-lifetime journey. Only the queen lives long enough to make more than one migration. The colony may lose up to 50% of its bees before reaching the new nesting grounds, which could be up to 160 kilometers away. But incredibly, future generations are able to find their way back.